Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome on lockdown day 40, once again from our house. And today I've got a lovely guest with me, Alfreda from Michael Berger Attorneys. She's a conveyancer and a property specialist, and also my beautiful wife. That's how I managed to have her part of this live session. So I'm not going to say good morning, but I'm going to say welcome, Alfreda.
Thanks, Luca. And I just want to say that if you hear kids screaming in the background, we are both in front of the camera, so they are running wild, and we left the eldest in charge. So good luck to all of them. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
Brilliant. So today's topic is buying and renting. Now, this is an old age discussion. It's a debate. People have been having this, I think, for many years. And today we want to emphasize and reiterate that everything that we're going to mention here is this is not our opinion. We're going to give you different scenarios. We're going to give you facts, certain costs, certain things to look out for, so that at the end of the day, you will have enough tools so that you can make an informed decision. I think a lot of us, then that is basically the step that you need to do. Whereas after today, hopefully, people will act. Now, Alfreda, when I've finished my studies now, and I decided, you know what, my budget does not allow me to straight go into the buying market yet, but I would want to rent. Is there certain things, one or two key aspects that the clients needs to look out for when they're going into renting a property?
This is such a uh, wild question that I'm not going to touch on all of it. What I'm going to say to start off with is the moment that you've identified a property that you feel comfortable with and that's within your budget, I would advise that you request either your agent or your owner to provide you with your draft rental agreement and take that thing to your conveyancer or your property specialist to go through the contract with you and explain each and every clause and make sure that the contract is in line with the Rental Housing Act. So let's leave the contract out of that for now. I think two things that's very important for people who's renting or starting to rent to know about is the costs involved when you go into rental. So when you want to start your rental agreement, you will have to have the finances to pay the first month's rent together with a deposit that is usually 1 month or 2 months rental, as well as the admin costs payable to your estate agent or your rental agent, and that's in the region of about 20% of 1 month's rental. So all of that you will have to have and saved up for, and that's excluding your moving costs, because a lot of people forget that moving is expensive.
Yeah.
So those are the things that you'll definitely need to take into account. That deposit will then be invested by your estate agent or your owner in an interest bearing account. And at the end of your rental agreement, you will get that interest as well as your deposit back. The most important thing, and that is that you need to remember, in order to get your deposit back, so all damages that was caused by you not taking in mind the natural wear and tear of the property will be deducted from your deposit, and that will only then be paid back to you. So if you look after the property and take care of it, you will get your deposit and your interest back. If you don't, then you won't get your full deposit back. The other most important thing is to make sure that when you enter into the property that you do an inspection with your estate agent and your owner, and there will be a list of defaults of the property, and the property on the condition that it's in will be noted in that document and signed by all the parties. And then again, when you move out, and that's the most important part, to ensure that your deposit is safe. So that'll be your reference, your point of reference, your starting point of what the property and the condition that it was
Okay. Awesome. So you all can hear that there's really a lot of things. Renting is in our minds probably the most easiest thing to go into because that's what the majority of South Africans do. But it's important then to remember what Alfreda just said is there's certain things that can really bite you, if I can say it like that, at the end of the day. So if I can just quickly highlight there, when you move into the property, make sure that the estate agent is with you or either the owner, and you go
do
through
the
a list
rental inspection.
and you do a rental inspection and you keep that safe. You go and save that with all your
Pictures.
very, very important documents And then at the end of the day, you will have that available when you move out again. Um, so just quickly on the finance part as well. So going into renting a property, if your budget allows you to pay about 8 to 10,000 rand with the figures that Alfreda just mentioned there, upfront in the beginning, you're going to need approximately about 20 to 24,000 rand. That's without moving cost, just to move in. So
One important thing, sorry,
mm,
Roka, that I forgot to add there. You must remember that when you move into a property, you will also be liable to connect the electricity. And most of the sectional title units make use of an electricity supply like impact metering, all of those. And they also ask for a connection fee in the region of about 1,500 Rand. So that needs to be added to your budget when you think about your first month's rental, your deposit, your 20% admin fee, and then also your electricity connection fee that needs to be paid.
awesome. All right, people. Just before I forget again, I would just quickly like to say hello to Yolanda, Erich, and Arnold. Thanks for joining in. People, please send us messages. As always, I'm available on WhatsApp. I'm available on the chat as well. And then, please, if there's anything that you are not sure of, anything that you would want to find out more, now's the time to ask us. But also afterwards, you're more than welcome to either send me an email, and I will transfer and forward it to Alfreda. Go and purchase a property. So buying property. And before I get to that, there's going to be a lot of figures mentioned now. So please get your notepads ready, so that the three scenarios that I'm going to run through, when you go and have a look at them afterwards again, you will see that um, there's no right or wrong, like we've already mentioned. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to go and make an informed decision. Emphasize again that there's a lot of things in here based on the calculations and the assumptions that we have not included, where we don't have the actual facts. So this is just giving you a guideline that there's really a lot of things to look out for. Okay, so the assumptions is we're going to buy a 2 million rand property. The inflation rate, even though currently in South Africa it's running about 4.2 to 4.5%, we're going to work on 6% inflation. So for all calculation purposes, the inflation is 6%. The interest rate on your bond repayment is going to be 9%. Okay, so therefore also another thing to keep in mind, currently prime, I think is at
7.75.
There we go, 7.75. And we spoke to a few people. The average interest rate that the banks are currently giving is roughly about 8%. Now, bear in mind, this is the lowest.
0.15.
Yeah, this is the lowest that it's been for 40 in the last 47 years. So even these calculations that I've done, and the interest rate that I'm working on is 9%, the chances of it going up within the next 20 years is almost 100%. I'm not saying it is going to happen. We all hope it's going to stay as low as possible, but then it influences other investment markets. And on that note, after the scenarios, you will also see that and investments. Stay diversified. If you've watched my previous episodes, it's all about diversification and diversifying your portfolio. So let's get into it. Scenario one, I'm buying and I'm paying it off over the next 20 years, which, if I'm right, Alfreda,
residential property.
There we go. Residential property, as well as your typical South African, your average South African family, they're going to own one property. They're going to buy it now, and they're probably going to pay it off over the next 20 years of their lives. Now, based on facts, and this is actual facts, on a 2 million rand property, if you have a 9% interest rate, your monthly payment is going to be, if we work it out to the cent, 17,994 and 52 per month. Right? So for calculation purposes, I've rounded it off to 18,000 rand. But before I get into what the growth is going to be on your property and where we're going to, Alfreda, explain to us a little bit more, because now we as individuals look at, hey, 18,000 rand, I can afford that. What other things are there that we need to look out for?
It's important when you, as a family or as an individual, do your budget and decide what property value or what is the amount that you can pay towards a house. It is very important to remember that it's not only just your bond payment that you need to take into account. When you purchase a property, you are also liable to pay your rates and taxes towards the TIF finance or whichever municipality or metropolitan you live in. So that rates and taxes also depend on the value of the property. So you need to take that in account. But I unfortunately cannot give you an assumption on a 2 million rand house. But keep that in mind. So rates and taxes need to be paid. You will have to insure your property, and that's a requirement from the banks as well. And it's common practice to insure your property to make sure that it's safe. You will also have to pay if you buy sectional title or a property that's in a security estate with a homeowners association. You will be liable to pay levies as well. That needs to be taken into account. And then also, if you register a bond over the property, they require you to have a form of life insurance with any policy, any company of your choice, but you will have to have a policy in place. So that life insurance premium, you will also have to take in account when you do your budget.
Okay. So on top of that, just to quickly highlight again, on top of the 18,000 Rand a month, rates and taxes, you're going to have property insurance. You're going to have to pay levies if you're living in an estate, as well as then there's going to be life insurance involved. And there might be one or two other fees as well, depending on the situation. So for calculation purposes, once again, I've worked on, and I think this is probably a low estimate of 3,000
A little
Rand.
bit under budget, but let's put it.
Under budget, but let's work with 3,000 Rand. Okay, so all of a sudden, I could afford 18,000, but now I'm looking at 21,000 Rand, all costs included, for a 2 million Rand property. So then I went and I said, okay, if we go and pay this property off over the next 20 years, another thing to keep in mind, I did not include maintenance. So the other scenario that we later going to talk about is when you purely just rent, and what we've spoken about, the rental agreement and inspection that you're doing up front. There's no maintenance involved in a rental agreement. But when you purchase a property, there's going to be maintenance as well. Now, I think if you go on Google and speak to people, you will also get an average of what the maintenance can be. Probably depends.
Personal preference.
Depends on how you run your own house and how you look after it. But total payment without any other costs, you're going to pay about 4.3 million Rand in total over 20 years. So 2 million Rand property is going to cost you 4.3 million. Now, I've worked on a property value because now at the end of the day, what the discussion is all about is to see that we're working towards financial freedom and we're creating our wealth portfolio. So we want to see in 20 years from now, which is the best. And yeah, we'll get to, is there a winner? We're 100% not sure yet. And I worked on a 6% property growth. Now, 6% at this stage, I think, is a fair average. Back 2000 to 2006, property boom in South Africa. Properties were growing by about 20% per annum. But last year's property growth was
3.
only 3.4 to 3.69, the average over the last few years that property in South Africa has grown by. With the coronavirus, the pandemic that we're currently experiencing, property in South Africa is really not doing well. If you go and look at the asset class within investments, property, it's really not going well with South African property. So therefore, for the foreseeable future, we don't see it escalating back to a 15, 20% at all. Okay, so we worked on a 6%, and therefore, that same property over 20 years from now, estimation value at 6.6 million. Okay, so we've made a good growth on our property, but it's important that some of the costs were not factored.
So if I understand you correctly, you will have then a 2.3 profit.
Yeah, 2.3 million profit, future profit.
Future profit if you pay it over your 20 years with your installments. With the growth. Okay.
Another thing to keep in mind as well is now you're sitting in the property, you don't owe a cent on it anymore. So what's next? And therefore, I want to go maybe 5 steps back and just say that it's important that we have these type of discussions. That's why wealth managers are there, and they're not just there to sell you a product or get you into things. These are the type of discussions you need to have with your wealth manager so that you can make an informed decision and decide, this is our plan. If we're going to go with scenario 1, what do we do afterwards? Okay. So, Alfreda, before we move into scenario 2, I've decided now, you know what? Okay, I can afford the 18,000 Rand. And I've got the extra 3,000 or 4,000. I've got roughly about 25,000 Rand a month in my budget. So I'm comfortable with buying this house. Now I come and see you as a conveyancer and I ask you for advice.
Yeah.
I want to now buy this specific property. I found the perfect one. What key things does one need to look out for that needs to be included in all of this?
The same as with the rental agreement, I'm going to stick to the financial side of it because going into the contract details is quite broad. So I would advise you the moment that you've identified the property of your choice, please ask for your offer to purchase, take that to your conveyancer and go through it with them and make sure that all the details and all the clauses are up to standard.
Okay.
So I'm going to park that there for now.
Okay.
Cost wise, I think you would have to save up for a deposit because most banks require you to pay a deposit of 20 or 15%. First time home buyers, they've got products on the market where you don't have to have a deposit. But I would say from the word go, save up for a deposit to put down on your purchase price. So have that in mind so that a 10% deposit would be about roughly 20%. 20,000 rand.
Yeah, 200.
200,000 rand. Then the other thing that you'll have to have in mind is that you're going to be liable to pay transfer fees. Okay, transfer fees are the fees payable to your attorney tending to the registration of the property in your name. For a house of 2 million rand, as we used, it's going to be in the region of 85,000 rand.
Okay.
In that, included in this, the transfer duty payable to such, which amounts to 50,000 rand.
Okay.
Then, when you register a bond, there's a second set of attorneys involved, and they will be called the bond attorneys. They will also deliver you with an account, and this one usually takes the wind out of most people's sails because they budgeted for transfer costs, but they completely forgot or didn't know that there's also bond registration fees payable to the attorneys. And for a 2 million rand house, that's in the region of 35,000 rand.
Okay.
So that's important to make sure that roughly you've got those funds available just to start off.
That is also funds that I need to have
cash in hand.
You can't put it into the bond that you're getting from the bank. Okay.
There's very few projects still available that allow lenders to obtain their costs from their bonds. Okay. You will be very lucky if you get such a deal from a bank. So I would say if you start planning to buy a property, make sure that you save up for a deposit, save up for your transfer fees, save up for your bond fees. That you want to change, fix, paint, stuff like that. Very important. Make sure when you discuss your agreement with your attorney that the estate agent fees or commission, are they payable by the seller or by you as the purchaser?
And that's important. Yeah.
Very important, and that must be stipulated in your contract. Mostly it's payable by the seller, but make sure that it's included in your agreement.
No, so you don't want a nasty surprise that at the end of the day, you've budgeted and you've saved up for all of this, but you didn't go through your contract, and now all of a sudden you are held liable for a portion of the commission, or maybe all of it. Alfreda, so now I'm excited. I've got all my funds. I know I can do it. How long does this take for me to actually move into my house now?
From the day that you sign your, from the day that your bond's approved, that I would say take between 8 to 12 weeks to budget for that. So if you are renting or you want to arrange for your move, keep in mind that it can take 8 to 12 weeks.
Okay, so don't wait until you've got a month left on your rental agreement and then quickly go and buy your house because you're going to live on the street.
Or pay more rent.
Okay, I'm quickly just going to go in. I'll give Alfreda a break to have a sip of coffee there. Hello there, Bernard, Jonathan, thanks for joining us. And then Arnold, how does it add up if you boost your repayment to pay your property off in 7 years? I will get to that in scenario 3. It's always going to have an impact. And then at the end of the day, you're going to have to wait until scenario 3 to see what I've got there. Any other questions based on scenario 1? Please, guys, leave it in the chat, and we will get to it as we go through. Now, scenario 2. Now, this is the one that causes another debate. Like, is this maybe not the win? Where you go into renting and investing. And so on a 2 million rand property, we worked out that the average rental that you're going to be paying on a 2 million rand property is roughly about 15,000 rand. So you can expect if the property is going to be worth 2 million, you're going to pay about 15,000 rand a month. So based on scenario one, we're going to pay the 18,000 rand plus the 3,000. So total cost is about 21,000. So in this case, you're still moving into the 2 million rand property, but now you're only paying 15,000 rand. So there's a 6,000 rand that you've got left. And therefore, I've made a simple calculation. And I said, okay, we don't need to worry about the maintenance cost. I'm living there. I'm loving it. My deposit is growing. And then I'm taking that 6,000 rand and I'm investing it. I remember back what we said for calculation purposes. The assumptions that we made is your 6,000 rand is going to stay 6,000 over the next 20 years. We're not going to increase that. And then the return on average that you can expect is I've worked on 10%. Now, by the way, some interesting info when I looked at the JSE returns over the last 20 years. It's quite interesting that in the last 20 years, we've experienced the 2008 crash. I think I can say we've experienced the 2020 crash because these stats were as of end of March. And for the last 20 years, the JSE has grown by 12.46% on average per annum. But for the last 10 years, it's only done 7.6 or 7.7%. So it shows you what an impact the crash has on what has happened. So therefore, I thought 10% would be a good line to work on. And then scenario two, in 20 years from now, I'm still going to be renting, but what is my asset worth? We're looking at 4.5 million.
So if I understand you correctly, that's the 6,000 rand a month that you've deposited now into your investment with a growth of 10%, that adds up to 4.5.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. So you've got cash in hand then.
Assets, if you can call it that. Yeah. There we go. So you're still going to be paying your rent, but now you've got liquidity. Once again, back to have a conversation. Decide what your plan is. What's going to suit you the best? Do I want to have liquidity? Because remember, scenario one, I don't need to pay the bond anymore, but I also don't have any liquidity because if I want to do anything else, I need to sell that property. There are some scenarios and discussions. I'm not going to go too much into that, where people say, well, you can actually leverage the one off the other because you've got an access bond, and it's part of what Arnold asked there. Can I pay it off quicker, making use of an access bond? It's very important that you understand the rules behind an access bond and not just see it as an easy way to get new credit.
As a quick bank account, because that's not at all the idea.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into scenario 3. That's the one, renting and buying. Now, a term that's coming up more and more, specifically in South Africa, but in America, it's a well-known thing, is communal living. They call it family living over there, where you buy a house, an apartment, or a unit, and you basically get a lot of people moving in with you. So
like a commune.
There we go, a commune. In South Africa, we know it as a commune. When you're a student, you move into a commune where it's actually becoming a popular thing among grown-ups. Families live together, grown-ups live together, young professionals live together. And then, so this scenario 3 is, once again, we're going to go and rent the 2 million rand property. So you're thinking now, how can I get an investment out of this and build towards something? I still rent the 2 million rand property. It's going to cost me 15,000 rand a month. So now still I have that 6,000 rand spare. But instead of investing it, I go and buy myself now 2 500,000 rand units. Now remember all the costs are involved, the transfer fees, etc., that needs to be taken into account. So none of those fall away. It is a little bit less, because the percentages based on the amount that you are buying is now lower.
Yeah, the transfer cost will be more or less in the region of 17,000 rand. Yep. There's no transfer duty payable on a property of 500,000 rand, and your bond registration cost will also be in the region of 17,000. So you're looking at a total of 34 to buy a property of 500,000. Okay.
So it came down from 85,000, we're down to 34,000, and then back to the 9% interest rate. You're going to pay 4,500 rand per month for the 500,000 rand unit. Now, when we spoke to the estate agents out there, am I right by saying where's the
bulk rental?
There we go, the bulk rental, the popular rental space.
Rental bracket at this stage is between 4,000 rand to 8,000 rand a month. So when you buy a property of 500, you're smack bang in that bracket.
Okay, and that's also why we use this scenario, because it's going to be much easier to rent out a 500,000 rand property
Yes.
than what it's going to be to rent out a 2 million rand property. I mean, they even told us that market is completely no, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So back to the calculations, 4,500 rand a month that you're going to be paying. Then rates and taxes is also going to be involved. So for this calculation, I worked about on 2,000 rand a month. So it's going to cost you in total 6,500. So yes, we are overspending by 500 rand if we take the 6,000 rand. But remember, now you're sitting with a rental income. So therefore, you can easily now rent this house out for about 4 to 5,000 rand again. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So therefore, you're going to sit with an excess every single month that even though you need to pay your 6,500 rand from your pocket, it's approximately only going to cost you about 1,000. Let's make it roughly about 1,000.
Yeah.
So therefore, you can actually buy two of these properties and still be able to settle all your costs and fees and everything. And at the end of the day, it's not costing you something. But what you need to take into account is then, oh yeah, sorry, I said you're going to sit with about 2,500 rand per property, sorry, out of your pocket. For two properties, it's going to be 5,000 rand. So you're going to sit with an extra 1,000 rand that you can spend, either pay it off earlier, build up a maintenance. Because remember, now you're sitting with another problem where you're going to have maintenance. So it's important to bulk up and have an emergency maintenance fund so that you can take care of your rental properties, as well as then it's important to maybe reinvest. Back to Arnold's question, is that going to make a difference? Based on the same scenarios, the same calculations, in 20 years from now, remember you're sitting with two units, so they are both worth about a million rand. And in 20 years from now, your property value is going to be 3.3 million. And let's say we invested that 1,000 rand. Your 1,000 rand investment in 20 years from now is going to be about 759,000 on a 10% average interest. So therefore, your total asset is going to be just over 4 million. So it's 4,069,000 that you are sitting with. Okay. Um, Now, Arnold, your question. What if I take this 1,000 rand and I pay it into my bond? Your total payment is going to be then about 2.1 million. And then, but if you pay that 1,000 rand extra in on your properties, the saving is going to be about 303,000 rand. But the thing to bear in mind is you're going to pay this property off in 54 months earlier. So what it then means is all of a sudden the property cost me a certain amount. Now I don't need to pay that anymore. So now I've got still the rental income coming in of 4,000 rand a month, two properties. So that means I've got 8,000 rand now that I can invest for a further 54 months. Meaning then I sit with 542,000 rand out of the 8,000 rand that I invested for the next 54 months.
So, to add up to your asset.
Yes. So after 20 years now, all of a sudden, I'm sitting with a cash value of about 846,000 and my property value is 3.3 million. So therefore, total value 4.1 million. And I think if we go through all the scenarios, we're looking at buying and paying it off in 20 years. There's about a property value or asset value of 6.6 million. Scenario 2, you're going to have about 4.5 million. And scenario 3, you're going to sit with roughly about 4.1 million. And I think to put all of this into one short summary, now you can see why we say there's no clear winner when you look at these three scenarios. It's purely going to be what's going to suit you the best. There's really ample amounts of scenarios.
And I always say renting, buying, it's also a personality thing. So some people want to own a property.
Yeah.
Other people don't want the hassles of doing the maintenance and taking care of the property. And some people don't want to rent out the property because
Yeah.
that can also be a hassle sometimes, or a risk, because you stand the risk of people damaging your property or not paying their rent. So it's definitely a situation that you need to make sure fits your family, fits your profile, fits your personality.
Awesome. I just quickly want to check there. Bernard, in scenario 2, we're assuming a consistent rent and investment, where in reality our rent will grow and start using the 6,000 rand. Can we look at when this amount will pass the cost of ownership? We can definitely do that. Like I said, for calculation purposes, the easiest way I could
Was
do
to
this
do
was
this.
to say, you know what, I stick to a certain amount because you never know. Buying property, what I said there, the growth was on 6%. It depends on which suburb. Someone that bought a property in a specific suburb 20 years ago might not be smiling today, where another person that bought a property 5 years ago is smiling all the way. So therefore, after this, if you want to know more about it, I will get in touch, and
But I
then
think
then
it's
we can
important
discuss
to
it.
remember that we are working on assumptions because
Yeah.
we had to do calculations.
There we go. So we have to work on fixed values and assumptions. Please throw us with more questions. We're almost done because I've reached my final question. I went through all the scenarios. I'm an individual. I picked the one that suits me the best. And let's say part of it is I'm going to buy.
Yeah.
Is there final things that that an individual needs to look out for when moving into this?
I think it's very important to remember when purchasing a property that there's a few pitfalls that people generally don't know, or that forget, or they are never been told that. The first thing is that it's important to make sure, are you buying this property um, in your personal capacity?
Okay.
Are you married? And if you are married, are you married in community or out of community of property? Because if you are married in community of property, your spouse will have to be registered as a co-owner
Okay.
on your bond and on your property. If you are married out of community of property, you've got the option to decide, are we going to buy together and we're going to register the bond in both our names, or are we registering it just in your name or just in my name? But it's important to remember, and we get this question a lot, can we register the property, for instance, in your name, Wilco, and the bond in my name? That can't happen. The owner of the property is also the bond. Okay. So you're going to have to make sure that you understand that if you are married out of community of property, you choose to do it in both persons' names, that they will both be liable for the bond. So that's the first thing that's very important. The second thing that I want to bring under people's attention is the moment that you sign an offer to purchase, that is your offer that's taken to your seller. The moment your seller puts a signature on that offer to purchase, that becomes your contract. So I get a lot of people that signed a contract and they say, but we only signed the offer, and then they're sitting in a contract with clauses in that's really not to their benefit. So and before you put your pen to paper, make sure that you have got everything included in there that you want included. An offer to purchase becomes your contract. Very, very important. Then the other thing that I want to bring under your attention also is that you need to make sure that your property that you are buying have got approved, registered with the council building plan. Okay. That's a problem that we're sitting with on a daily basis where properties or buyers buy property and they don't ask for the building plans, and then later on it's their responsibility to make sure that their building plans are drawn up. So make sure in your contract that you stipulate that building plans must be provided to you. It's your right. You are entitled to those building plans. And then the last myth is that I want to reiterate is lots of people ask me, who chooses your conveyancer? And that is a very, very, very in the market. It is usually the seller that appoints the conveyancer, but it's open for discussion. Yeah. Any purchaser can say, but I've got a good conveyancer, can we please use them? Or your seller can say, I've got a good conveyancer, this is who I like to use. Or even the agents advise sellers and purchasers, because not everybody's got a conveyancer on speed dial. So make sure that that is part of your negotiation.
Mm.
Because you, as the purchaser, will be liable for the cost. So make sure that the conveyancer that they choose, or you choose, or that's part of the contract, someone reliable, and that you get your quotation from them for your cost.
Yeah. I wanna also emphasize that I think it's very important where when you trust us as your wealth managers, where you need to trust the conveyancer that you work with as well, because this is, and I think all the articles that we've read, one of the biggest decisions one will make in your life is
Purchase a property.
buying a
Yeah.
property, and
You want
therefore
to make it a pleasant experience.
I always go out and I say, if you have to get a heart surgery tomorrow morning, you're just not going to go to the first best guy that someone has mentioned or that's got the top Google ad. No, you're going to go to a second and a third
Or you're
opinion
going
and
to
go
go
and
to the
find
one
out.
that's the quickest.
There
I can
we
help
go.
it.
And therefore, I think it's very important what Alfreda said there. So not that it's just my wife, but I mean, I can really vouch for them. Michael Burger Attorneys, they are a team of fantastic individuals that really works hard. So on that note, Alfreda, I really want to thank you for taking your time. I'm not hearing a lot of screaming in the background, so I think the kids are fine.
We hope they survived.
And I want to thank all of you for listening, and thanks for the interaction. And just there's no right or wrong when it comes to buying or renting a property, but I think it's important to always have an informed discussion. From our side, stay safe. We're almost there. We believe we're going to go to level 3. Hope for that. And yeah, be in touch. Thank you. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye.